So the governor made an announcement yesterday. Why don't you brief everybody on
Well,
that?
that's right. The governor did make an announcement. But if I may, I want to talk about communication just a tiny bit first.
Sure.
We've been communicating in multiple ways. And so in addition to what we do with Facebook Live, we have a lot of information posted on our website. We've also been sending emails to parents. So part of what we're doing today is making sure that we put some extra facts surrounding some of those typed out answers to things, because I know that families have questions that sometimes putting a little bit extra meat on those bones makes a difference. But to your point, Carol, this is still such a fluid situation. And yesterday afternoon, the governor announced that he was recommending all public schools closed through April 24th. And I'm confident that he was receiving directives or instruction or advice from the health professionals with whom he works.
Sure.
And so, of course, we honored that. So we did announce yesterday afternoon, as part of a communication we'd already planned, we actually added to it that we are closed through April 24th to honor the governor's request.
Right. So everybody thinks we've been out for such a long time, and trust me, it does feel like we've been out for a really long time. But actually today, technically, is our last inclement weather day that we have built into our calendar. Explain to our families, number one, I guess, how our calendar is built and why we do that, and then kind of where we are in this situation.
Well, I'm going to get emotional a little bit because I've been sharing this emotion with our staff. It feels like forever.
It does.
It really feels like it's been forever. And so we, from a calendar standpoint, and I think everybody kind of has this general idea and knows this, we have built in what they call stockpile days. We've talked about this from time to time. Typically it's for weather. But in this case, this year, we had 10 days built in. Officially, technically, this is our 10th day. We actually provide instructional services over and above the state requirements, and so that's part of what we do with the stockpile days. But the truth is, from our perspective for planning purposes, that's neither here nor there because it feels like it's been forever.
And then you threw in spring break in the middle. So we truly have been out about 2.5 weeks.
That's right. And of course, our teachers have been off during that time as well, because when we have an inclement weather day, as part of our agreement with the teachers, they're off just like the students are.
Right.
And likewise, they were off during spring break as well. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about this in a little bit. We had a number of teachers who got together and actually worked with us outside their obligation.
They didn't get together.
Well,
they conferenced.
They got together electronically.
They
got together remotely.
Don't want to give any false impressions
That's
out
right.
there. Yeah, right. So I think the big thing on everyone's mind right now is instruction, or it's lots of different words, and is my child going to get behind? What are you guys doing? It doesn't seem like you're doing anything. Yeah. And you just said, yes, we have been planning. We had plans in place and we've been working. So if you can, maybe start with elementary school and what the focus is going to be there.
Well, first, we do have a remote instruction plan, and I shared a lot of that in my email yesterday. But I'll tell you, I'm not happy with how quick we've put it out, and a lot of the reasons were what we just talked about. But we've been pushing. As an example, I communicate regularly with David Stoughton from Franklin Special School District, and they actually distributed Chromebooks to a number of their older grades yesterday, and it he's ahead of us by a couple of days. Franklin Special's ahead, and that drives me crazy. But the reality is, because of our structure and making sure we planned, we are a little bit behind than I would like to be.
But they are K-8 and we are, I'm just going to say, and we're K-12 and we have 41,000 students.
Well, they're pretty great.
But they're good partners.
I will tell you.
Yes, good friends.
They're pretty great. And again, he and I have talked regularly.
Yeah.
And so number one, before spring break ended, I made sure I sent a link out to families about our online resources that we made sure that we posted and were available through their child's ClassLink account. Now, generally speaking, those are supplemental materials. There are some Google Classrooms where students can actually get on their individual teacher's Google Classroom and find materials that are actually specific to their actual course. At the younger grades, that's not nearly as regular because Google Classrooms tend to be an older grades
Right.
System. At the younger grades, the direct instruction from teachers really is a large part of our focus. So with that being said, that first step was to make sure everybody has those resources so that if students want to spend some time, they want to do a little bit extra math work, they can go to Go Math at the elementary level, et cetera, online. But what we've been working on these last couple of days with those teacher teams that have in large part been working remotely with our curriculum specialists are to provide additional instructional resource materials. I did another double check. We've been having daily or actually multi meetings during the course of these last 2.5 days to see how they're doing with it. So on Thursday, which is tomorrow actually, we will be able to post a number of elementary resources that are focused on English language arts and math. There will also be some additional posts for elementary content as well at the same time. And they will be basically in PDF format so that you can pull it up, read. Students can read on the computer if they'd like. You can print those resources. And those are instructional resources so that students can have time to walk through things down that line. There will also be a recommended schedule from the elementary folks for when if you think about the course of the remaining part of the school year, when it's appropriate to go through that. I do know that some people will go fast because you're stuck at home and you want to do a little extra, and that's great. One of the things we're going to work on in the coming weeks is add to materials as we go.
So that was what I was going to say, because originally we were working through next week, the end of next week. Now we will be adding resources because now we've extended to the 24th.
And I tell you, Carol, in our planning process, we anticipated this possibility might happen. Our elementary curriculum folks have actually already committed to doing more, and there's actually going to be more online than just these next 2 weeks already. And so that's why I wanted to mention that recommended schedule. Again, knowing that if you want to go extra fast, you want to cycle back, or as teachers say, spiral to other materials, hey, that's great. Do what you can within your home, because I know that a lot of you are going just a little wild, stuck at home. So I also want to mention, Carol, I've talked about that being online. But in addition, we recognize that not everyone can just pull something up online or print it out at their house if they want to hand it to their child. So we're posting on Thursday. Our elementary principals are actually going to have physical packets available at their schools on Friday.
And principals will communicate that information to their families.
That's correct.
That won't be a district communication. That will be a communication coming from your individual schools.
That's right. And each principal is going to do a call out to their families to let them know. I sat in on a meeting this morning with the principals. They're planning on having tables out front. Parents can just pull up, run up, grab a packet, and go if they'd like that printed copy.
Not going into the buildings.
Yeah.
It's a curbside service, right?
Now that's correct. Now those prints are going to be English language arts, English and reading plus math.
Right.
We're also going to be working on some additional print versions that we'll be providing over these next few weeks, and likewise, you'll get the call outs from principals related to that.
So Elizabeth on Facebook has asked, what's the number one resource parents should be doing at home learning? And I'm going to offer up reading. Read. A variety.
That's exactly what our elementary professionals have said. Read. Continue to read. Let your children read to your children. Make sure that the reading is available. And so, as an example, what we gave access to through ClassLink last Friday included the Tennessee Virtual Library. That's one of the icons that you can click on when you get into ClassLink.
And find some
Of
material
course,
to read.
You may have books at home, but we also want to let you know that you can do that through the Tennessee Virtual Library.
Okay, let's jump to secondary schools. Lots of questions regarding secondary. And when you look at 6 through 12, there are, I think, close to 200 course offerings at the high school level alone. And our teachers and curriculum specialists have been working on each of those classes, and the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, each of those classes will have a Google site.
That's correct. And so number one, I want to reference us back already to what we provided on Friday.
Okay.
The secondary students spend a lot more time on class link than the elementary students, so they're very familiar with it. When we asked folks on Friday to let us know if you had lost your password or username, the vast majority of those were from the elementary level.
Sure.
I think we might have had on the first day 2 people say they lost their password at the secondary level. So there's a lot of content already available there for students, including individual teacher Google Classroom sites for a lot of those classes. And so I want to let everybody know, number one, teachers are posting specific material to those Google sites. But in addition to that, when we put our teacher teams together these last couple of days, we recognize that some of the best teachers aren't posting a lot. At the same time, many of our teachers are having to care for their children right now. And so because of all those issues related to making sure that we gave everyone good content, our teacher teams have gotten together and they are working and finalizing those packages for students at the secondary level, to your point, for every class. It was a heavy, heavy lift.
It was a heavy lift.
I'm so impressed with those teacher teams that have gotten together for that.
And they're still lifting.
That's
and
right.
they're still posting. And they will continue to be posting. It's not all going to be up tomorrow. They're going to add to over time.
So that's going to be on our Google sites at your particular grade level. When you get into ClassLink, you can actually pull up your ClassLink, and the Google sites related to your course, students, will be available for you to pull those instructional materials and work through.
We have several questions here. I think this is about. I'm not as good as this as Corey is. So, if you are missing a graduation requirement, or you need to recover a credit or two, how's that working?
Well, so graduation requirements and credit recovery are those items we work with students on. The State Board of Education is having a meeting on April 9th to discuss graduation requirements. And so part of that is the state restrictions and requirements that we have to make sure we comply with the state. The state as a whole recognizes this issue, and so we are going to be waiting till April 9th to find out some of those answers related to that. Now, for us, for practical purposes, we're committed to making sure our students graduate. And I think that's a common theme across the state and really across the nation. And so I'm confident in that. I know that we're going to have some permissions and some direction from the state related to those graduation requirements. I'll give you one example. For students who have taken credit recovery, the standard the state has us on is we have to have a monitor for students doing that work, even though it's completely online. And so those are some of the things that I think are being addressed at the state level.
Okay, and you said that's April 9th?
April 9th.
Okay, so we'll know more
that's right.
after April 9th.
That's right.
Okay, we'll be communicating as a district, I'm sure, with that information. So really, people are asking about graduation and various things. It's a little bit premature for us to even be able to talk about a ceremony and that part of things at this time.
Well, our hope is, of course, the governor again closed till April 24th. Our graduations are in mid to late May. Our hope is that the health professionals give us some room. But I will tell you, that's not something we can control.
Right.
And so what we have talked about already at the early stages is making sure there's some kind of celebration. We've researched what some others have done. As an example, I know some colleges have already set their graduations for August. And I suspect what they've done is they probably combine their summer graduation with their spring graduation. But we are committed to finding a way to celebrate. I will tell you, students may not remember a particular standard that they've studied in Tennessee. They may get that in their head through the learning process, but we all remember our graduation. And so we want to make sure that there's a way to celebrate. That's something that we're working on as well.
So let's talk about upper level class. Typically it's juniors and seniors that take advanced placement, although we have some sophomores and freshmen who start if they're interested in getting a lot of those credits. Talk about advanced placement and what's going on with those courses. They're a little different.
Well, that's right. And I actually, when you talk about advanced placement and you mentioned juniors and seniors, I actually first think about AP Human Geography,
Which is
typically a freshman. Most of the AP Human Geography students are freshmen. We have sophomores and some upper grade levels in that class as well. I actually one time read through that entire textbook. I still have some of that in my head from an instructional perspective. So again, reading is important. But AP has announced that they're doing a couple of things. Number one, they are only going to be testing this semester or this year 75% of the content. So for example, if you had a year's AP class with a test, it'll be 75%. If you had a semester, it'll be 75%. What's interesting to me is that is right on track with what's happening here in Tennessee. That instructionally, this event happened right about at the end of the third quarter. And so I will tell you, our AP teachers are excited about that. They know that the content they're going to be able to put out to their students over these next few weeks that content is going to help their students prepare for those AP exams, because AP has recognized what we're living with right now with that fourth quarter. Now, we've also learned from AP that the tests are actually going to be online this year. We don't have the details of that or a schedule yet from AP, but that's being driven by AP.
Okay. All right. So I'm sure that the schools will be communicating more, and we probably will at the district level too. So
as we receive more information from AP.
Right. Another one of those things that we have no control over.
Yeah. Likewise, College Board that administers ACT. Some of those, College Board does AP as well.
Yeah.
So that organization is working on their testing schedule as we speak.
Okay. We've received a lot of questions about what I'm going to call, I think what people are saying is distance. I'll call it distance learning in air quotes. There are so many terms that are out there, whether it be online learning, distance learning, whatever. When I think of distance learning, I think of what they do at the college level, where you might have a professor, broadcasting out a lesson. So people are asking, why aren't we set up to do that?
Well, we are doing remote learning. We haven't walked through the whole process that we're doing, but a lot of online resources and materials are part of that remote learning. Likewise, something I didn't mention is I've emphasized to our teachers that they need to be a resource to students. When you're talking about distance learning, if you're talking specifically about a scheduled class where students participate one-on-one online with a teacher, we don't have a structure where that's going to work for a number of reasons. One is because of accessibility for families. Now, we're working on that. We're going to talk about that in a little bit about us delivering Chromebooks and making extra Chromebooks available. Students and many students have struggles with schedules relating to that. Our teachers, many of our teachers are at home with their children, and from a scheduling standpoint, locking them into a particular time of day where they must provide an online direct relational class is a practical impossibility. So what we've done is a remote learning standard that includes our teachers posting materials, us having those really good lesson structures from our teacher teams that we've talked about, with the supplement of our teachers being empowered to post additional items that they think are appropriate for their class. Now, I will tell you, we know that not every teacher is going to have the capacity to do that because of personal issues. We can't put substitute teachers in when somebody's online.
Right.
And so that's the reason we had teacher teams put things together. But teachers are empowered right now to put additional resources onto their Google Classroom sites for their students, many of whom have been doing that already. Many teachers already had some of that prepared for their students as they went through and planned for the end of the semester. So students, you can get on your Google Classroom and you will be able to find from many of your teachers additional resources. As part of that also, I know you want to ask me another question, but as part of that also, teachers will have the power to communicate by telephone, by email, through the My Place accounts. We want to invite students to ask questions of our teachers. If you need feedback from your teachers on some of the work you're doing, teachers are empowered and asked to have those communications with students. So they may send some information out to all their students as they're working through this. But one thing I want everybody to know, these are not assignments where we're requiring you to do it. These are materials that we want you to do because we know not everybody can do it.
So to me,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds more like what we are doing is very much like our online coursework program that we already have in place, where you work at your pace to complete the coursework. Granted, I think they have maybe a face-to-face meeting in our online program once a week or something like that. That would be removed, but there's still conversation going back and forth between teachers, and the students are working at their own pace.
Well, and I will tell you, even with our online, which is actually in its second year, where a number of high school courses are online, we found that especially with high school students, having a structure where they have some goals and particular dates on the online courses has been important. And so, it's a blended model, like you said, the online. So even online is going to have to shift a little bit,
Yes.
because we have that blended model where there is some time where they're all together. And so I want to emphasize to parents and students, review your materials. I know many of our students are motivated in part because you've been stuck at home. Look at those materials that are posted tomorrow. Double check your Google Classroom sites with your particular teachers, because there may be some online materials available right now. Consult with your teacher, ask questions of your teacher. Your teacher is eager to have those communications with you and share. I sent an email out to our teachers yesterday morning, and I want to emphasize some of the things I told them. And I told them what we started with, even though we just came off spring break yesterday, 2 days ago now, and are officially still using our stockpile days. It feels like it's been forever. And I want to also acknowledge that students and parents and our teachers have suffered that loss because of that engagement of being in class. But I started with our themes of students first, have empathy for your students and don't go it alone. And I specifically asked them to open the doors of communication with their students. And I know from some of what I've heard from parents, that actually happened yesterday. And I'm so proud of our teachers for that they've opened those communication doors. And that includes through Skyward, through email accounts, through Google Classroom. Some of our schools are using a product called Schoology, and so there'll be some communications through that. I've also asked teachers, no matter what their schedule is, to check their email daily, respond to students and parents who reach out to them. In addition to the proactive communication, I've asked them to be responsive and make sure that they're checking their My Place account regularly. And I also asked them, as students start looking at their grade level resources, make sure the students know they're there to answer questions and help them navigate through those grade level resources. Our teachers know where our students are instructionally through the course of that course. And so I've empowered our teachers to have those conversations with students. Give them additional materials that might be appropriate based on where that student is.
Right. And to that end, everybody's working. We're starting tomorrow, the break ends. There are no more weather days. There's not spring break. I think we have, there's a holiday in there, one more day until the end of the school year. So everybody is working. Everybody, I think what our families really want is that communication from those teachers and from their school principals. Yeah. And so you may be flooded with communication, starting tomorrow.
Well, so. And I believe that families will be flooded with that communication. One of the things that I've had conversations with leaders about is, as hard as this is these last couple of weeks, it's wise to look for the good. And how are we going to be better once this is over? Acknowledging that, boy, I wish we could have been a few days ahead of this. Here's a piece of good that I found. One of the things I asked our teachers to do is, if they have a resource for their students that they have in Google Classroom, send it to their principals and we'll post it within our content. And I think what we're going to get is that mix of best practice. Like I said earlier, some of our best teachers are doing that work in the classroom and might not do a lot of electronic. Likewise, some of our teachers are doing some amazing things online that others might not have used. And shame on us for not sharing those resources. Now, the truth is, teachers have been sharing those resources with each other as departments have met. But I'm looking forward to seeing
You're going to get to know more about it.
What those teachers are going to share with their principals that we're able to post, and ultimately make us even better, even though we're going through this hardship right now.
A couple of other things I have to get to. Talk about our special ed students and the services that we are providing them.
So. Parents who have children with disabilities know that we have individualized education plans because every child is unique. In the whole system, all our services are designed to meet that child's individual needs. The reality is, in for a lot of students, online learning is tough. They might have an issue with attention deficit, etc. There may be some accessibility needs that a child has. So our special ed leaders have been working with teams as well to give accessibility resources to those students. So for example, sometimes a hard copy is more valuable than online. Sometimes there might be a need for a read aloud. Somebody who has an impairment might need some other method of receiving those resources, receiving those materials that we're providing to everybody. And so part of what I'm hoping for, and I've asked our special education teachers and our therapists to do, is to reach out for families and check on them so that they can brainstorm over ways to improve the accessibility for our students with disabilities. Now, there are some things that we can do that are very structured and generic, which, for example, have a read aloud program. But there are other things that need to be very specific to that particular child. There are some assistive technologies that our staff is working on, finding ways to help our students as well. The reality is, when you think about a full-blown school structure where students are in the building getting all their services directly, when you remove it from the building, there will be some gaps in general education and special education as well. Our folks are going to be working in both instances to try to minimize those gaps. At the special ed level, it's going to be very personal.
Our counselors are working. We're gonna go over our 30 minutes, but we have to just go over just a little bit, okay?
Well, let me tell you, I'm very willing because there are some items that I still want to
I
talk
haven't gotten
about.
to some of this yet.
Okay.
So, but our school counselors are working. Our social workers are working. And so I know that you have encouraged our families last night in the letter that you sent to reach out to them. We have parents of seniors who, they're still trying to go through what are our next steps after graduation. So I know that you would encourage them to reach out to their school counselor for some guidance on that.
That's right. And so yes, I did tell our school counselors and our social workers, et cetera, we've had relationships over the course of the year. I've asked them to reemphasize those relationships and reach out to those who need help. But we've talked about this being such a big change and such a loss. I know that there are students out there, and probably parents too, who are suffering some anxiety that they hadn't experienced up to this point.
Right.
And so I want everyone to know that we have staff and others who are available to you to give you some help, to help you find some help to address that anxiety. When I think about psychology, I'm not a psychologist, but I think about tools in a toolbox. I know from enough conversations that I've had with healthcare professionals that one area of focus, to use my terminology, is those professionals help students and patients develop tools to address whatever they're facing. And so I want us to be available to help people have tools to address this new event.
Sure.
Because the truth is, this is unprecedented in our lifetimes. I was trying to think about when was the last time the United States has been disrupted like this. I think we probably have to go back to World War II. And it was a very different kind of disruption. And so a lot of us don't have the tools in our toolbox to work with this. So call your principals, give your principals an email, and ask for those resources if you're not yet having conversations with our school counselors.
Okay, I'm jumping back again. So questions on here regarding Chromebooks. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the high schools are communicating with their students today.
That's correct. So our technology department has been breaking down our carts. We call them CALs, computers on wheels. That structure required separating out charging cords. You can just pull one device out, but unless we provide somebody with a charging cord, it's not going to do them much good very long. So the last couple of days, our technology department has been breaking down a lot of those carts so that we can have a power cord and a device to give. The structure we have for passing those out is, number one, if you need one, then we want you to be able to come pick one up. And that's an issue for us because we are not a one-to-one district. We've been piloting one-to-one this year at Independence High School and Brentwood Middle. So we know those students aren't going to need one. But there might be some others who don't have a device at home and might need one. Your high school principals, if they haven't yet already, I think they're going to start those calls at about noon. High school principals are given a call out with a schedule for high school students to come check out a Chromebook starting tomorrow. And then we're going to go to middle and elementary as well. High schools and middle school students, it's a really valuable resource for students to use to access these course materials. We're also doing some printed copies as needed, but again, this is a really valuable resource. When you tack on the ClassLink materials that we made sure were on there last week, plus the information that our teachers are putting on now, you need to be able to have some kind of online access.
And again, that communication will come from your building principals.
Directly from your building principals, so you're going to expect a call out today with the high schools for a schedule. Then later on, the middle school will receive a call.
Again, you may be getting several calls. If you have children
right.
in multiple schools, you're probably going to get quite a few calls over the next 24, 48 hours from different buildings.
And also, Carol, at the elementary level, we gave those online resources through ClassLink all the way up the line for all grade levels. Elementary school students may not need those devices as much, but if somebody decides they need it, that's our next step to make sure that's available as well.
Working through that.
I know I've had conversations with Dr. Snowden from Franklin Special. As I mentioned, they did a lot of that starting yesterday, so they are a couple of days ahead of us. But we're going through that same process. But from an elementary perspective, because we have so many resources online, we have not limited it to a particular grade level, but just with a caveat that we have limited Chromebooks available. So if you don't need one, we ask that you allow somebody who does need one.
Who doesn't have a device in their home. Another question I would like to get to is why does the school board policy prevent teachers from tutoring?
So the school board policy doesn't actually prevent teachers from tutoring. What the school board policy says is teachers can't tutor their own students for pay. Okay. That's the policy. And there's an ethical standard built into that policy that if somebody is in class with a teacher and a teacher is running a business, it puts a family in a real difficult spot. So the standard we have for our teachers is you've got a commitment to educate your children in your classes, and that's the commitment you have, and you can't charge them for that work. But our teachers do have the power to give extra services to those students in their class, and that happens all the time. That happens all the time on Google Classroom. That happens in emails. That happens in the hallway sometimes at school when they're not in that teacher's particular class. Also, teachers have the power to tutor other students for pay if parents want to work out that agreement. Now, from a scheduling standpoint, we have a commitment to our teachers that we're paying them through this school year. We need them to be available to you, and so we have never prohibited our employees from taking extra jobs outside of their time commitment to us, and that's still true. But
during the school day, they're on the clock.
Yeah, but during the school day, they're committed to the work that they're doing with serving their students.
Right.
And so I want to make sure our teachers continue to serve their students And if there's something on the side that's within board policy, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, I'm going to do a real quick right here. Kindergarten registration, lots of questions about that. That has been postponed. We will communicate that through all of our sources. If you aren't on Facebook, I guess you're watching us now, but like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also sign up to receive our InFocus newsletter. Also, all of the information will be on our website at wcs.edu. Just a couple more questions, and folks, I'm so sorry. I know we're not going to get to everybody's question, but hopefully we have given you at least a broad picture, knowing that more specific information is going to be coming to you from your child's teachers and from your child's principal, and not necessarily at the district level, although we will do our best to keep information updated. It's so very important that we remember to feed and that children need food, and we do have that need in our communities. And we had a wonderful food giveaway last weekend out at Westwood Elementary School. Go watch the video in yesterday's In Focus. It's online. Go take a look. James Rometty worked with One Generation Away. They gave out 325 food boxes to our families. And we have events coming up this weekend in the Spring Hill area at Chapman's Retreat Elementary School. Again, working with the Well and One Generation Away. Our food services department is working hard to make sure that our children are fed.
And we actually have a link on our main webpage to that with a schedule. So a lot of people have talked nationally about the USDA food service program and delivering individual meals. And the basic standard is an individual student can come pick up an individual meal at certain sites. We don't qualify for that program. And so what we've been emphasizing is two things. One, Franklin Special has some qualifying locations, and anybody under the age of 18 can go and pick up a meal at that moment.
Monday through Friday. Poplar Grove School from 11 to 12:30 and Liberty Elementary School from 11 to 12:30. And Franklin Special says, come on, we'd love to help.
And they actually get reimbursed from the USDA for that. But to your point, we've also focused on giving families food boxes. It includes a mix of dry goods, canned goods that are
produce,
that are a pretty significant supplement to what could last a family for a week, depending on the size of the family, a week, maybe more. So that's what we're encouraging families to pick up, so that you can have some continuity of that supplemental food. We know some people have been laid off. We know that many of you are working from home and might have gotten a reduction in pay. And so this is really about us meeting this crisis that's come upon everybody just in the last couple of weeks. And so we really want to encourage you to come to our sites and pick up those food boxes.
I meant to end there, but just a couple of third quarter. Talk about third quarter grades.
Third quarter grades, because we're scheduled to be out through late April. Third quarter grades are frozen right now. We're not finalizing our grade reports. We'll make that decision a little bit later. As you know, and I don't know if we've been very specific, but I want to make sure the materials and the lessons that are put online are not required assignments for students. They're designed for students to use, but we're not grading those assignments. Students can share those in their work with teachers and get feedback from teachers, but as part of that, likewise in the fourth quarter, there are no grades at this point. I think the AP test example that we talked about is an example of nationally that recognition,
right?
That fourth quarter is not going to be there in a lot of places, and so the short answer is at this point those grades are not finalized. It's possible. We don't know what the future holds. It's possible we may be able to go back right at the end of the year, depending on what happens with that curve that we keep on hearing about of COVID. But we're still planning for both eventualities, and we'll finalize that in part based on what the state board does with high school requirements.
And again, that's April 9th. We'll know more on that after April 9th, after they meet. how can a student get a hard copy of a transcript or attendance record so they can go get their driver's permit?
That's a really good question, and that's a big deal for
It is.
students as well as
It
you
is.
hit age 16. Give your high school a call. Let them know what you need. They'll schedule a time. We'll make sure we honor the social distancing requirements. But it's a phone call to the school to schedule a time. I will say also, we've had some calls from students that say, "Hey, I have my scientific calculator in my locker because I left it there." Our high schools are also scheduling times for the remote pickup of those items out of the lockers. Our administrators are going locker to locker based on those needs, and you will be hearing from your high schools about picking up those things that your children might have left in the building and might need for these next few weeks.
Again, a lot of that communication is going to come directly to you from a teacher or principal or at the school level as opposed to the district level.
That reminds me of another college example. You know, a lot of folks have said colleges are doing all this online. A lot of colleges have also said you can't come back on our campus, and so there are a lot of personal items of many of your children who are in college still at the college. So we want to make sure we get back to our students what they need.
Okay, we've been at it 43 minutes. So I'm going to ask you just to kind of tie it up with a bow, and then with the understanding that we will do our best to keep you updated as things change. And they are changing. They change daily. Sometimes they change hourly, as we have learned. We'll try to keep our website updated. We'll try to use all of our social media. I know that Mr. Golden will be sending out more communication to families as well. But again, a lot of that's going to shift back to your individual classroom teacher and your school principal.
Well, so first I want to talk about communication. Everybody hears things in different ways, and some like to listen to this Facebook Live, and others are like, I don't want to sit through 40 minutes of listening to you talk. I need to hear that in a different way. So we've been trying to do multiple communications tools, and we've received some criticism, and I want to acknowledge it and respect that. There's always room to improve. So we're making it a focus to give multimedia sources for you to get those. That includes our FAQs on our website. And I will continue with emails. We're going to continue with some of these videos, social media, etc. We're hoping that we, in some way, are going to have some communication that you can get yourself in whatever way is best for you to receive it. But on the communication side, I want to emphasize the big change. The big change is you're going to get communication from your administrators, you're going to get communication from your teachers, and those avenues of communication are open. Sometimes you don't want to hear from us. You want to get into that meat. You want to get into that meat of your classes. And so I've emphasized to our teachers that door is completely open. Please use that door.
I told you the last time, I don't want to call anybody anymore.
That's our number one. You still need to hear from me as a leader, and I will continue to communicate with you as a leader, but I want to make sure you know that your teachers are available to you. The second big piece I want to mention is just a quick reminder of our remote instructional plan. Number one is we have resources online that supplement what our teachers have been doing through the years. And that's something that your children can get on in those moments where you're just going a little stir crazy. Get online and do some Go Math or whatever it takes. Do some Dreambox, those products that are available that we made sure we are available. Second is we are having both online and, if you need it, hard copy versions at the elementary school of course materials that our teachers are putting together now. We're going to post that tomorrow. Your principals are giving you calls about picking up hard copies if you need them on Friday. The third piece is related to secondary schools. On Google Sites, we've at every course we're putting resources together. Those will start posting tomorrow as well, which is Thursday as we're recording. And it's going to be course specific so that students can get that coursework they need. As part of that, we've also empowered our teachers to put more on their Google Classroom sites. So in addition to that standard baseline coursework that we're going to have at every class, there will be, in many instances, supplemental materials from your teachers. And you might prefer to do that teacher work because you know that teacher and how they work, and we want to invite you to do that. The third big piece related to that is we're going to keep that updated because we know this now is extending beyond the time that we started. And I appreciate the steps that the governor and his staff are taking related to that. The next piece is the Chromebook delivery for those who don't have an available device at home. I also want to mention, Carol, related to that is we have on our website, on our Student Resources website, links for families to get free internet access from those private providers.
Yes, right.
And we hadn't mentioned that yet.
Thank you.
So that's part of our tiered system. We are also writing this up in probably a one-page or so document because I know a lot of people don't want to listen to me walking through this. They need to see this in writing. So that'll be an additional item so that you guys can see the entire remote learning plan that we have for us. I want to apologize for being behind. We were we were the ones who first got hit, right? If you remember, the Williamson County resident was the first. And we were closed during that time. And so some of our resources were not available to us. But we're gonna make it right from a scheduling perspective with high quality materials for our students, as Williamson County is committed to and has been doing for a number of years. Final thing I want to mention is we're going to get through this. This is a wild, crazy time that none of us have lived through before. We're going to get through this, and we want you to know that we're committed to your children. I believe that there's going to be some spiraling, some review when school starts back across the country next year because of the time this hit. But I know that if we all work together, follow those health professionals' advice, we can get through this. You might go a little stir crazy in the meantime. We've all had a little bit of that. But I want to invite you again, when you hit those specific issues, contact your teachers about those issues.
And reach out to your teachers and principals because they miss you as much as you're missing them too.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you, Jason.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.